HR Section 92.3.7 requires that all votes at remote meetings be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies include the testifier's address, email address, and phone number and will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. I want to welcome Councilmember Say. Good afternoon. Long day for you. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to item number 1, Resolution 23-180, accepting a gift to the city from the Honolulu Zoo Society valued at $3,585 for a ventilator from the veterinary hospital at the Honolulu Zoo. And here is Tito Holyfield, Director Designate.
Good afternoon. Thank you. It's an honor to be here today, council members and esteemed colleagues. I wanted to accept the gift to the city from the Honolulu Zoo Society. It is a special ventilator that's designated for extra large animals such as elephants, giraffes, rhinos, and hippos. We've never had one before, but we were loaned one when Squirt, our 24-year-old giraffe, had fallen ill, and it assists with anesthetic procedures. So it's something that we've never used before, but we're honored for the opportunity.
Do you have any questions for the Director Designate? Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you. Hi, Director. Thank you. And it was great to go to the zoo with you. So why haven't we had a ventilator needed in the past? We've had the same animals and larger animals, large-scaled animals as well for years now. So how come only now we have it?
So I don't really have a great answer for you, except that we haven't had these procedures needed during the large animals' illnesses. And so it was through when Squirt went down is where we saw the need for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, we'll now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chambers. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Is there anyone in the chamber that would like to testify? Okay, we will move now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there is a registered testifier.
Is it Angela?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, Angela. You can go ahead and testify.
Aloha, Chair and the City Council. Angela Melody Young testifying in a strong support of the resolution and on behalf of ROAR, Rescue of Animal Rights. So the clinic at the Honolulu Zoo has a purpose, which is to build an animal hospital. And the main building is 7,000 square feet with separate 700 square feet quarantine building. And I'm just reading the website. The new hospital provides an efficient medical facility, which enables us to provide excellent medical care for our zoo animals. And they treat medical conditions, provide intensive care, nursery, surgery, x-rays, and animal holding and quarantines. The interior animal hospital room holds mammals, birds, and reptiles. And the pools and the floors of the animal allows the zoo to house aquatic animals. And so it is a good thing to work on building the events in the zoo. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions for the testifier? Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item remotely? Clerks.
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Cordero.
Oh, no, I just have a question again for the director. Dr. Holyfield, I was just wondering if there's ventilators for other different sizes of animals, because I know that this one is for larger scaled animals, but do we have an inventory of how many ventilators there are for like medium size or smaller ones, and if it's different for other types of animals?
Yes, we do. We have several ventilators depending upon the size of the animals.
Okay, perfect. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else with questions? Okay, the chair recommends that resolution 23-180 be reported for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, let's move on to item number 2, resolution 23-190, accepting a gift to the city from the Honolulu Zoo Society valued at $9,750 for the replacement and repairs of safety padding to the playground surface at the Honolulu Zoo. And here to speak is Tita Hollyfield, Director Designate.
Mahalo, Chair. I just wanted to say that as we went and we saw all the children, the new playground is just exquisite for all the kids, but the safety padding needs to be replaced. And so we were accepting and excited about the opportunity to resurface that piece of the property.
Have any questions, members? Okay. We'll now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. We'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Okimoto.
Chair, if it's okay, if I did think of one for Director Holyfield, if that's okay, thank you. Oh, you mentioned the padding, and I've taken my kids here multiple times. Do we have any issues with instances where there was a liability issue where the city was liable for someone getting hurt so far?
It's more just about the wear and tear. We want to ensure safety at every turn.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Director Holyfield. I was just wondering about the playground. Was this not a part of any capital improvement project for the zoo in the last few years? Because I know that we've had a few over the decade.
No, it was not a part of it. That's why we were excited about the gift.
Okay, perfect. Was there any intent? Because I know that the wear and tear doesn't just happen overnight, right? We see that it does occur that this playground padding could have been included in already finished CIP.
So we're going to be looking at the longevity and doing the study. And if we feel like at some time we will need to be adding that into the next couple of years' budgets, we will be doing so.
Okay, I look forward to any further discussion.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
All right, members, any more questions? Okay. The chair recommends that resolution 23-190 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, moving on to item number 3, resolution 23-187, accepting a gift to the city from Malama Kipuka, Hawaii, valued at $1,150 for 2 basketball backboards adorned with vinyl artwork for installation at the basketball courts located at the Smith Baratania Park. And here to speak from the administration is Director Laura Thielen.
Hi, Dorian Monomitsu Department Staff Executive Assistant. Hello, Chair Toba, Councilmember Okimoto, Cordero, and Say. On behalf of DPR, we graciously accept this generous gift by Malama Kipuka for Smith Baratania Park of the artwork for 2 basketball backboards. Thank you.
Questions for the test? Anybody? Okay. We'll now proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Do we have any registered testifiers on this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none registered.
But I do see Angela Melody Young's hand is up. Angela, you have something to say?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, go ahead, testify.
Okay, testifying in support. So the gift from Malama Kipuka, the mission is to foster connections within the communities by creating strategic partnerships within the local government bodies, landowners, businesses, residents, and other stakeholders to activate existing underutilized public spaces and find creative ways to dedicate and convert existing private spaces for public use. And Malama Kipuka Hawaii strives to create safe, welcoming, and vibrant urban oases, or kipuka, that benefit communities by providing social and cultural programming in these activated public spaces that is representative of the surrounding communities' rich past, present needs, and future vision. So in support, because it creates a vibrant community.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Okay. Members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. This question is for DPR. Dory, if she's here. Okay. Hi. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Okay, so I was wondering, is Smith-Barrett Tanya adopted by Malama Kipuka Hawaii?
No.
No.
I don't believe so. I would double check.
Okay, and I was just wondering, of course, normally when we do get gifts, of course, the maintenance of the gifts is then continued by our maintenance, right, at
Correct.
DPR. And so that's why I was just wondering if it was adopted by a certain organization, if by the same organization, if they were gonna help with the upkeep as well.
We can double check if Malama Kipuka, they've actually adopted another park.
Oh, okay. Which park is that? Is it nearby?
Cartwright
Okay.
Neighborhood Park by Makiki District Park.
Oh, okay. So are they just like pinpointing different parks to give gifts to?
We've been lucky enough to have them as generous donator to DPR. They've been looking at revitalizing a lot of the basketball courts and the backboards.
Oh, I guess some in my district. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, get some in my district too. Might as well take advantage, right? Anyone else with questions? If not, the chair recommends that resolution 23-187 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. All right. Item number 4, relating to the appointment of Mamoru Sato to serve on the Commission on Culture and the Arts of the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on June 30th, 2028. And I do see Mr. Sato here. Good afternoon, Mr. Sato.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. Let me just give you a very brief background for myself. I grew up in southeastern Colorado on a farm, a place where I was known for dust bowls, not for looking at the Rocky Mountains at all. Went to the University of Colorado for my undergraduate and graduate school. Came to the University of Hawaii as an art professor in 1965, and I retired in 2013. So I think it's about 48 years, I think, something like that. So I think it's time for me to try to give back. And I think this is one way to give back to the community.
Any questions for our, okay. Thank you, Mr. Sato. Thank you so much for your service. I know we now have to proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. I just wanted to say thank you, sir, for your service. And I know we had a great conversation on Zoom, and I know you bring a lot to the commission. So thank you again for your service. Okay. The chair recommends that resolution 23-145 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. All right. Okay, moving on to item number 5, Resolution 23-147, confirming the appointment of Paige Miki Okimura to serve on the Commission on Culture and the Arts for the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on June 30th, 2028. Hello, Ms. Okimura.
Aloha mai kako. Mahalo, Chair and members, for having me. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Members, you have any questions? Okay, well, we will now proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Members, we are in discussion. Okay. The chair recommends that Resolution 23-147 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 6, confirming the appointment of John Leong to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreations for the City and County of, I'm sorry, did I say, okay, sorry. Item number 6, Resolution 23-151, confirming the appointment of John Leong to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreation for the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on December 31st, 2025. Mr. Leong, would you like to say a few words?
Aloha, Chair Talba and Vice Chair Okimoto and members of the council. It's an honor to be here and to be considered to help to serve our parks and recreations. Born and raised in Hawaii, went away to school in the mainland and came back. Started a few organizations. Probably the most relevant is a nonprofit called Kupu, and we work with young adults across the state doing conservation and sustainability type work. And so we're really passionate, and I'm really passionate about young adults getting involved in our natural resources, in our environment, and giving back and serving as well too. And another relevant point is that I'm a father of 4, and we're avid park users. We've really appreciated the parks and botanical gardens here and the summer programming. So we're big fans of the parks and recs, and I want to be able to do my part to help out to make them better for the next generation. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for the testifier? Okay. We'll now proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. Okay. The chair recommends that Resolution 23-151 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Right on. Okay, moving on to item number 7, Resolution 23-152, confirming the appointment of Nikki Medwitz to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreation for the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on December 31st, 2026. And Ms. Medwitz, you want to say a few words?
Aloha, Chair. Aloha, members of the council. I'm Nikki Medwitz. Professionally, I'm the Public Affairs Director at Aulani, Disney Resort and Spa in Ko'olina. Personally, I'm a triathlete, and I run, bike, and swim all around the island, utilizing our parks all around the island. And I just really believe in giving back strongly, and also helping to represent our families on the West Side. I'm a resident of the West Side myself, and I just want to see everything doing better here on our island.
Awesome. Any questions for the testifier? Okay.
Sure. Ask a question.
Okay. Councilmember Tupola.
Thanks so much. Thank you for volunteering your time and having the desire to serve on the Parks Commission. So my quick question to you, since you're from the West Side, what do you want to see get better at West Side Parks?
I'd just love to see more access for all of our families to more parks on the West Side. Personally, I am a swimmer, and I utilize pools, and I have to go into Waipio for. There's a really nice pool in Waipio, but I'd love to be able to be a little bit closer to home there, and just a little bit nicer parks in our area.
Okay, well, thank you for your insight. I look forward to meeting with you on the side so that we can talk more about this. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, anybody with questions? All right, we'll now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Do we have any testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
We don't have any registered testifiers, but we have a raised hand.
Okay. Go ahead, Angela.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee, Angela Melody Young, testifying in support, although I don't know the nominee personally. I'm supportive. And also, is it possible to get a sponsorship from Disney? Because Disney did provide like special taxing districts in like Florida or something. So it helped out the government. And also there are very like commercialized companies that are working with the government to provide for the people. So like example being Microsoft allocated $583 million towards the preservation and creation of 9,000 housing units in Puget Sound to create affordable housing. And that's in California. So yeah. Okay, thanks.
Awesome suggestion. Maybe one day, huh?
I'm definitely interested in exploring public-private partnerships, whether from Disney or from other areas.
All right, members, we are in discussion. Okay. The chair recommends that resolution 23-152 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item number 8, confirming the appointment of Judith Steinbauer to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreation for the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on December 31st, 2026. Did I say your last name correctly? Close?
Close enough.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Aloha, Chair and Council members. Thank you for having us today. It's an honor to be considered for this position. I am a landscape architect and faculty member in the School of Architecture at UH Manoa. Over the last 25 years of my career, in my teaching, practice, and research, have been concerned with public open spaces and the design of parks and so forth, and would be honored to bring that to the board.
Questions for the appointee? Okay. We'll now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chambers. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. We'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. I was too slow to come up with questions in the very beginning, but I just want to thank you for, of course, being allowing yourself to be considered for the Board of Parks and Recreation. It would be great to have your expertise in relation to designs, but I know that we also are quite strict within the city confines and ordinance confines, and I guess also design confines. But of course, with our growing society, there's different, I won't say requirements, but requests from neighbors that often want like maybe more tot lots or things that I think would also help with access to different types of persons who live in our community. So I hope that I hope there is a way, whether it be on the Board of Parks and Recreation or even in this committee, to talk about that, because there may or may not be need for ordinance changes to do so. Yeah, I think like just as the parks need to grow with the times, so do with like our designs and our policies relating to parks. Thank you.
Awesome questions. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. I know we had like many great conversations in the last 2 weeks, so I appreciate you wanting to be on the board. The chair recommends that resolution 23-154 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, moving on to item number 9, confirming the appointment of Christiane Nishita to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreation for the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on December 31st, 2027. Ms. Nishita, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, happy to. Thank you, everyone. My name is Christy Nishita. I'm the director at the Center on Aging, which is at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And as a gerontologist, I am someone who's very passionate about healthy and active aging. And that's reflected in my work and in my research. And so I'm someone who will try to champion creating roles for kupuna that are valued and our kupuna are kept active and engaged in our community, and also someone who tries to foster intergenerational engagement as well. So I thank you for your consideration and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Say.
Ms. Nishita, would it be possible to restore the senior program at our respective parks? You know, a lot of seniors do need the exercise and they need the socializing. So Palolo Park, Crane Park, Alawai Park, Manoa Park. You take your District 5 first, then you can go to the other districts.
Yeah, I'm certainly familiar with the different senior clubs at the parks and have seen the fabulous activities and things that they do. I'm certainly still learning. I'm brand new in terms of learning the extent of how I can be of help. And so I'm certainly willing to discuss that, because I know that we need to keep thinking about ways to engage our older adults. The baby boomers are not going to be like their parents' generation, and they might have different interests and needs. And so I think that we also need to adapt, with the time.
Members, any more questions for the appointee? Okay. We'll now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. We'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we are in discussion. I just like to say thank you. Councilmember, is someone? Come on. Oh, okay. Angela? All right. I always gotta wait and pause because I'm almost certain that Angela has something to say. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say I support the nominee about the healthy, active aging work, and so I don't know if I can say this, so you erase it from the record if I can't. But the seniors from Lanakila, they like to play pickleball, and the pickleball is something managed from Parks and Recs. So maybe it's possible to kind of integrate something of a program for them. And the chair's mom goes there. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but yeah.
And I think a bat is illegal in Hawaii. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. Our discussion, I suggested a lot of things, including like getting the seniors more involved, not just only, doing rec or some of the things at the park, but like actually really volunteering to help, with our more than just activities, like just being, I remember, and I told Ms. Nishida, I remember it was always a senior at our rec center, just there before everybody else, maybe even left after everybody left. So, thank you. I know you put a lot of input in the board and give a lot of good recommendations, so thank you. All right. Okay, let me go back over here and move up fast too. Okay, the chair recommends the resolution 23-154 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 9, Resolution 23-158, confirming. Oh, I'm sorry. 159. Sorry. What happened? There's a. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. Why did I repeat? All right. The chair recommends that resolution 23-158 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, moving on to item number 10, informational briefing. Members, in the last item on our agenda today is an update by the Department of Parks and Recreation on the proposed draft rules and regulations for shore water events. Members, for your information, details on the proposed draft rules and regulations are available online as Departmental Communication 585, and a copy is included in your binder. And here from the administration is Director Laura Thielen.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for having me, and thank you for holding the briefing today. We had sent the council a letter dated July 17th, 2023, which outlines the efforts that we've made to date on amending the shore water event rules. What I'm going to do is quickly run through the process and the amendments, and then any questions that you have, I'd be happy to answer. So first of all, this effort was taken place because in 2020, the City Council adopted Resolution 20-12, which urged the Department of Parks and Recreation to update our shore water event rules to ensure gender equity for all competitive surfing contests held on the North Shore of Oahu. So over the course of 2021, a number of the council members continued to ask us about the efforts to update the surf rules. And at the same time, we started getting some comments from various people in the community about the need to have some management of surf contests on the South Shore in addition to the North Shore. So what we did is we set up a shore water advisory group, or a SWAG, is what we referred it to in the letter. And this is a publicly sunshine body, so all the meetings were held in accordance with the sunshine law. Shore water rules, what the city has, we are permitting the land or the park. So a group of people are coming into a park to use it for a canoe race, a rough water swim, or in some cases surf meets. And what we're concerned about as the land managers is the interaction with other park users. We want to make sure we don't have two different events going on at the same time in the same park when they're really large. And so we're focused on the land. The State Department of Land and Natural Resources permits the ocean because they manage that. So shore water events will have to get an ocean permit from DLNR, the Boating and Ocean Recreation Division, and a separate permit from DPR if they're launching from a park. So one of the people we invited to be on the Shore Water Advisory Group was Megan Statz, who is the Deputy Administrator for the DLNR Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation Division. And the reason we did that is we wanted to make sure our rules were compatible, because I know that there have been complaints in the past when people are trying to get permits from both organizations. If they're incompatible, it makes it really difficult. The two other members of the SWAG were Kanani Ori, and she is a small business owner on the North Shore, and she's done fundraising for youth surf events in the past, long time born and raised in the North Shore. And Keone Downing, who is a small business owner on urban Honolulu. He had been on a previous administration's shore water advisory group, so he provided some continuity. The group held 6 publicly noticed meetings. We put the notice out in the normal way for public meetings, but also through social media accounts and emails. And we took a look at the various rules and things in addition to the gender equity for the surf meets. So in that discussion, the Shorewater Advisory Group wanted to make sure that they got a lot of community input. So they ran a survey that went over a couple-month period during the winter surf season because they wanted to reach out to surf contestants and, and community members while events were going on. So when this stuff was in the forefront of their minds. Basically, I'll run down the rule changes that we discussed and then the process after we came up with our first draft. We looked at our general rules, and there needed to be some very modest technical amendments. And by that I mean DLNR, their rules for their permits required applications to be in 60 days prior to the event. Our rules required applications to be in 90 days prior to the event. And then our rules said we can't issue a permit until you get the DLNR permit. And that made things a little bit complicated. So what we did is we had the timetable, about 60 days to match DLNR, and we eliminated the requirement that they obtain the DLNR permit before we issue ours. But we are noting that they're going to be required to get a DLNR permit in order to move forward with the event. And so we wanted to eliminate some of the red tape. And we had another minor technical amendment. I think our rules were originally written in the Stone Age about how things were delivered to our office, so we wanted to make it a little simpler. We decided not to put restrictions on any of the shore water events, and we would look at the North Shore surf events that had existing restrictions and the possibility of South Shore surf events. But the rules are unchanged when it comes to any other type of shore water event. So no changes for canoes, rough water swims, or other types of shore water events. And I do want to say these are for the events. This is not for getting a permit to provide instruction. That's a separate set of administrative rules. This is for the large events that go on. So then we took a look at the North Shore rules. We did not want to change the limitations on the number of events or the timing of the events or the cooling off period in between events that existed in the rules. Those were set up, a decade or so ago, and it was based on the number of events out in the North Shore that was creating a lot of community impacts, both to the surfers using the beach as well as to the rest of the community because it's served by a 2-lane highway. And so the surf events, which can be very large, especially on the North Shore, were creating a huge influx of people coming in and clogging up the roads. So we tried to make any changes to that North Shore surf event rules to be fairly limited and focused just on the gender equity portions. When we looked at the South Shore, we said it does seem to warrant restrictions to protect the recreational surfers, and we modeled restrictions after what's in place on the North Shore, but they were not identical. And partly because, we knew that on the South Shore, you want to protect the break for the recreational surfers, but it did not seem to have the same added 2-lane highway traffic problems that the North Shore had. And so I'll go over a second about the changes that we made for the South Shore and how they are a little bit different from the North Shore. But when we took a look at the equity issue on the North Shore, we took a look at the existing rules. And the existing rules will rank applications because there are more applications than there are slots available for surf events. They basically will rank them and prioritize them. And the top ranked ones will get their first choice, and then second choice, third choice. And if you've got people tied, you'll try to do a conflict resolution until you fill up that calendar. The ranking under the current rules looks at 3 different criteria, and under each criteria, it'll have like 4 different elements. So the first criteria, again, this is current rules, is are you compliant with park rules? And it basically talks about things like keeping restrooms cleaned, trash removal, but it doesn't really talk about what it is that we're looking for in the application. So basically it'll say, what are your, submit your plans for how compliant you are with park rules and regulations, including cleaning and stocking restrooms and trash removal. 0 points means you did not meet the requirement. 1 point means that you partially met the requirement. 2 points means that you met the requirements, and 3 points means you exceed the requirements. But nowhere in the existing rules does it say what were those requirements. This created an issue not only for the applicants, but also for the DLNR staff that are reviewing and ranking the applications. The second criteria under the existing rules are plans to mitigate community impacts: traffic, parking, crowd control, local and government access. And that's all it says. It doesn't say what's expected or what the requirements are. And again, that same 0 through 3 point scale, but not a lot of clarity. Then when you get into the third criteria under the current rules, it's about equity. And it talks about equity for the type of event, because there was a desire to not have every event be board surfing, that there should be a variety in the type of surf event that we're calendaring. The age range of the participants, because traditionally the vast majority of applications are people in their prime athletic years. Whether the event is professional, amateur, or pro-amateur, because again, a lot of these surf events will be geared towards the professional surfers, and there was an interest in the city to have opportunities for amateurs and youth surfers as well, and then the gender of the participants. Under the current rules, this diversity ranking is considered only 10% of all the criteria. So 50% is compliance with park rules, 40% is mitigating community impacts, 10% is diversity. And then when you get into how this is ranked in the current rules, it's even more confusing, because it talks about a weighted ranking scale. And I have difficulty understanding this. I would assume most of the applicants have difficulty understanding this. When we looked at what we could do for gender equity, there are a lot of options, and I know you're going to hear some testimony today from Surf Equity about one. And one option that they had put forward was every event 50-50 men, women. That's equity. We had two issues with that. One is that we know that there may be organizations and surfers that are interested, particularly on women surfers, in competing for women's events. So we have a history of having 100% women's events here, and we didn't want to ban those, which a requirement for 50-50 would mean you could not have a 100% women event. So we wanted to look at something that allowed flexibility. The other issue we had is we permit probably about 18,000 events a year in the Department of Parks and Recreation, non-camping events. We do about 11,000 camping permits. But the non-camping permits, they can be minor events, they can be large events, but it would be very difficult for us to start to open up the door to a 50-50. We are not an educational institution. Title IX, which requires that type of comparable investment, those are schools, and the schools are hosting, creating, and operating the teams. Departments of city and county departments of parks and recreation, we do not do that. We're just permitting areas, and no other park department in the nation has that requirement. So instead, we took a look at an incentive-based system, because we were having, under the existing rules, ranking. And so we knew that we were going to have to go through a ranking, and in using an incentive-based system to place a very high incentive on diversity of gender. So what we did is we took the three criteria, that was 50% park rules, 40% mitigating community impacts, 10% diversity, and we changed it into two criteria. We merged mitigating community impacts, and you already have to comply with park rules. So a lot of what was in here was the traffic, the local and government access, the crowd control. And so we made that 50% just for that mitigating community impacts. And we made, we started out and saying it was going to be 50-50, but when we got more comments, we changed that rating scale so we could place a greater weight on gender. So under the mitigating community impacts, there's same four criteria, because we wanted that community liked those criteria. The applicants were familiar with it. Everybody kind of understood what was needed. So the traffic control, the crowd control, the government access. But we added in explanations of what it was that we were looking for. So for example, traffic control, off-duty police officers, being able to bus people in so that you didn't have everybody driving in, parking, making sure that you had parking in the park as well as, outside, off-duty police officers to make sure people aren't parking into driveways and things like that. So we were giving examples. So what is being looked for, and again, that's both for the applicants as well as for the DLNR staff that are going to be ranking these applications, so we have consistency over time in how these things are interpreted. Each of those four criteria is granted 0 to 3 points. Similar scale to what people are used to, but now you've got some guidance. Then for the diversity, we kept the same four categories: age, professional, amateur, type of event, and gender. But what we said is we made it clear that what the city's interested in doing was promoting diversity of underrepresented groups or historically underrepresented types of events. So in order to get the higher point ranking, if you have an event that is 100% of the underrepresented group, you can get 3 points. If you have an event that's 50%, you can get 2. And if you have an event that's not representative or have any representation, you can get 0, or with some you can get 1. And we defined diversity as being 2 out of 3 categories. And I'll explain why when we get into it, but the 2 out of 3 categories would be the number of contestants, the number of heats, and the prize money. So I'm going to use the gender as an example. So of those 4 categories of diversity, age, pro-am, gender, type of event, 3 of them, the maximum points is 3 points. For gender, the maximum points is 12 points. The reason we said gender equity is 2 out of the 3 is in talking with a number of women surfers. What we were told is that sometimes they'll have women in the event, but they will not be given equal prize money. They will not be given an equal number of heats. So just having women represented in an event doesn't necessarily mean that you're moving towards equity. So we wanted to say you can reach that 50% equity if you have the 50-50 in 2 out of 3 categories. It's 50% women with the same prize money, or it's the women receive the same prize money and an equal number of heats as the men. So if you had just 50% women, but you only gave them 1 heat, and the men received 4 heats and a higher prize money, that's not equity. So we were trying to address some of the concerns that were being raised by some of the surfers regarding the equity issue. We have held, in addition, after we posted these original rules, we held an additional meeting where we invited all of the people who had received permits from the department to come into a meeting, and other folks, through email were given information about it as well. But our focus then was because we wanted to hear about the application process, because the people applying for permits need to understand it, and we need to make sure that we've got this point system and everything and something that is workable. So we held several meetings where we got input from them and also from some of the recreational surfers who attended. We made some modest changes based on that input. One of them, for example, is we had done a South Shore calendar similar to the North Shore. North Shore calendar only runs during the winter months. We proposed a South Shore calendar that would only run during the summer months. We had some of the schools or people who represented the student athletes at schools say they would run their surf competitions during the winter, they wanted to have an opportunity to be able to permit an event during the winter time. So we did amend the South Shore rules to allow a school that's recognized by the Department of Education, and private schools have to be recognized by the Department of Education, so it would be up through high school only, that they could be the only groups permitted for winter events on the South Shore, but they would still be subject to the same cooling off periods and the same restrictions on the numbers of beaches, again, to protect the rights of the recreational surfers in those areas. We wanted to make sure that, similar to the North Shore, on the South Shore, every beach you would have at least every other weekend open just for recreation surfing, that there would be no surf events on a holiday. So even if you did have a permitted event on a 3-day weekend, it could only run on that Saturday, Sunday, and not on the holiday, so it couldn't take over the South Shore beaches during that time, same as North Shore. And that you would never have more than 2 events going on at any given time out of the 5 beaches on the South Shore. We've had a meeting for administrative rulemaking. You also have to, by state law, go before the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. So we had that meeting in front of them. They have to give you permission to go out for rulemaking. They've done so. They asked us to take a look because their kuleana is the impact on the small businesses at the number of surf events that are being permitted on the South Shore, because that would be a new restriction regime. And so to be mindful of that as we went out for public hearing. We did go back and take a look at the number of permitted events we've done on the South Shore over 2023, and that was it 12 or 16? Sorry, Dory's got her mask on. It was 12 or 16 total that were permitted by the Department of Parks and Recreation. So we think that this system that we would be putting in place would provide guaranteed relief so that the numbers of events would not grow into those weekends, and it would keep those alternate weekends and those 3 out of 5 beaches always open. And we look forward to hearing the thoughts today. Ultimately, we'll go on out for the administrative rulemaking hearing. Then we have to go back before the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. And then the final step would be the mayor signing on to the rules. The last thing I do want to point out is the North Shore runs on a triennial calendar. I think it started out as an annual permit. We're proposing the South Shore start as an annual permit. But what happened was, at some point before I came on board, the department changed the rules. I was told, at the request of a variety of people, to put it into a 3-year calendar. So our 3-year period is ending in December of 2024. The applications for the following triennial calendar are due January 31st, 2024, which means we would need to have final rules by January 1st, so the applicants would know what they're doing for the rules to be able to put them in. And in the absence of having the revised rules, the next North Shore triennial calendar applications would be reviewed under the existing rules that I started out describing, where equity is maybe a portion of 10% of the weight in the application. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you folks may have, or questions that may come up after the public testimony.
Thank you, Director. Members, do you have any questions? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair, and Mahalo, Director, for that. And I may have more questions if Chair entertains them after the testimony as well. But wanted to first just ask, Director, could you outline the timeline again for finalizing the rules? So there's a public hearing that's needed, 30-day notice or something like that, you said, or I'm assuming?
Yes, so under the state law, when you're going into making administrative rules, it's a different type of public hearing notice. So you're required to give 30 days notice where you publish the draft rules with the notice, and then you hold the hearing. And then after that hearing, if you make any substantial changes to the rules, you would have to give another 30-day notice and hold a second public hearing, and when that notice was filed, publish the draft amended rules that were changed. And then after the first or second public hearing, depending on whether there's any changes, you would have to go back again in front of the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. They publish 7 days advance notice, similar to the council, and have the public hearing with their comments, and they would then need to approve the rules to move forward too.
Okay. So when you said the amended published rules, are those posted for 30 days as well? Or they're posted and then it can go over to the hearing agency or the...
Yes, so what we've done is we have been posting the drafts as we go along, even though, you know, we're not in the formal rulemaking process at this point. So we've been distributing drafts, we've been putting them out by email, we've posted them on our website. As we've taken in comments and amendments during a number of these meetings, we'll tell people these are comments that we'll work on. The last meeting, I think we had not included Point Panic, which is Kaka'ako. So we're putting Point Panic in there because we had talked about the 5 beaches, but we hadn't listed that as the 5th one because we recently inherited Kaka'ako from the state. So we have been telling people as we go through these conversations what we're going to do, and then each amendment we work with Corporation Counsel, and then we go ahead and we post it. So right now, what people are looking at is a version, I think, that is the same or maybe even updated one time since the version that we gave you. When we finalize all of the amendments this round, we are going to ask CORE to approve them and Mayor to approve us to go out to the formal administrative rulemaking hearing. So we are hoping to be able to publish notice of that hearing at the beginning of September, hold the hearing by the end of September. Then we have to get onto the agenda for the Small Business Regulatory Review Board, and then we could have the mayor, if he's signing, have the final rules in time for the applications that come in for the next North Shore Triennial.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. And just a couple quick questions, Chair. I know we want to get to the testimony. So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the discussion and understand the complexities you're having to confront and all the folks you have to engage. I mean, would you at least agree that at the macro level, if we're going to say something is equitable from a gender perspective, then generally that would mean there's an equal opportunity of access by both genders. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know if you've seen that illustration of, 3 people trying to look over a fence to watch a game.
Okay, I love it.
Where, you give them all the same height box, but they're different heights. So the little kid still with the same height box cannot see over the fence. The tall person doesn't really need a box because they could see over the fence already. The box fits the middle person perfectly. So when you look at equity, while that may be equal, they each have the 3 same size boxes, it's not necessarily an equitable outcome given the situation. So I think what we're trying to juggle right now is, I've got the latest letter I got from the World Surf League in their comments. Events where 78% men, 80% men, 79% men, 84% men, 84% men, 83% men, 79% men, 80% men, 82% men. We're not all at the same height.
Yeah.
So I think what we're putting in place now on an incentive-based system, my hope is it's not necessary and we'll be in 3 to 6 years in a very different location and can be taking a look at very different rules because we will have changed that scenario of where we are with the surfers.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the example because I think I would actually agree and say that would actually be a reason why I think it would be appropriate to have gender equity plus still allow all female events, but of course under, this Supreme Court, that would likely have challenges. And so I'll just, turn it over back to Chair, but just wanted to note that I do think in situations like this, and you're citing off all these great stats, knowing that there's a lot of systems or approaches that could be used, right? If you had a drop dead date, competitions would still fill spots with men if women didn't take those positions, but it would at least afford them the opportunity, right? Ensuring that folks that are getting permits are providing that opportunity, because in situations or in particularly in professional sports, right? Athletes that speak up or try to engage male-dominated system oftentimes may face backlash. And so I think it's, instances like this where government is really afforded an opportunity to shine by just taking a stand on what our state constitution says, on what the council's policy position is or has been through the resolutions that have been passed. And so I just want to note that, and do appreciate all your work, because I know this isn't easy, and I look forward to the testimony we're going to hear today. So mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Wire. I see Councilmember Tupola with her hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question for the director. Thanks, Director, for that background. You're always very thorough and technical with everything. I'm on your website, and I just wanted to know more specifically where I can find anything written that you cover so that I can kind of go slower and start to understand it. By the way, you had wonderful people involved in that, interaction group. I think Kanani is a great representative of like businesses as well as from the North Shore. So I'm glad that you had a good balance of that, but I wanted to personally read it. Where can I find it?
So I think what you should do is take a look at the system for ranking applications for North and South Shore calendars, which is on page 29 of the draft rules, section 19-19-13. And that goes over the ranking.
Are the draft rules on your website, though? You said it was on your website, right?
Yes, it is on the website. The draft rules are on the website. The current rules are also on the website. So if you wanted to compare the current ranking system, because the changes were going to get really messy, what we have proposed doing is repealing the current rules and adopting a clean set of new rules, because reading red line rules gets to be really confusing. So under the current rules, the section you would look at for the ranking is section 19-4-12, North Shore Calendar Conflict Resolution. The current rules are in one location on our website when you look under rules and regulations, and that's the existing, all the existing rules. The draft rules, Dory, if you can look up where on the website it is, the first page.
Yeah, so I went to rules and regulation. That one was pretty easy to find.
I think if you look at the About tab, according to Dory, you'll see the draft rules.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, Dory, just sending it to me. I think I need to read it, because like on here it has like a list of all kinds of stuff, and I was looking under surfing, but there's nothing for surfing. So would it just be under? Oh, it's commercial swimming and surfing part 9.
No, that is the instruction permits. This is shore water events. So it's shore water event rules.
Got it. I'm there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So just make sure you're not looking at the existing rules. If you're looking under the tab for the rules and regulations, you're looking at the existing rules. You have to go to the DPR webpage under the About section, and then you can look down through the listing on the Abouts for the proposed or draft shore water event rules.
I see About. I hope this is helping other people too, because I feel like I just need to.
And I believe we attached a copy to the letter that we had sent to the council, so that should be attached to the agenda for today's meeting with the draft rules.
Okay, perfect. I found the Shore Water Advisory Group. So it must be somewhere near. Oh, copy of draft shore event rules. Perfect. I'll compare those side by side. So basically what you're saying is this one that I'm pulling up right here is pretty much what you just outlined.
I'm not sure which one you're looking at, but I'll tell you that the draft rules, it should be watermark draft, are what I just outlined. And at the current rules are in that listing of all of our rules under shore water events is what I covered at the beginning of the meeting.
Got it. Yeah. It has a big word draft across the middle. So I think I'm looking at the right thing.
Okay.
All right. I'll do some reading. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to, we'll now proceed to in-person testimony in the council chambers. Do we have any registered testifiers on this item?
Chair, we have one registered testifier.
Okay. Mr. Gary, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Tim Gary. I'm the impetus behind South Shore surf contest rules. I started this almost 7 years ago. None of you people were here. Different mayor, different everybody. I'm representing the local people that surf at Queen's Surf. In about 3 hours, 7 years ago, I typed up a simple petition. This is what it said. Petition to limit amount of days permitted to hold surf contests at Queen Surf to 10 days per year, with no contest longer than 2 days. Also, no contest to run consecutive weekend. Also, to stress to permittees that they don't have exclusive rights to the water, as per the Hawaii State Constitution. When Rick took office, I had a meeting in his office for a long time. And this is the folder. This was almost 2.5 years ago. And I instructed and kind of gave him a history because he didn't know what was going on in Waikiki. Everybody wants to have a contest. Everybody wants to have a contest at Queen's Surf. Everybody. From May 1st until about October, in some years, 36 days, Queen Surf was closed down. That's a public resource closed for private, let's just say it, businesses. There's people that are making money off of surf contests. There are people that are pulling multiple permits for surf contests. That's their business. They're charging people for the contests. I just came from the Duke Fest, 9 days, in memory of Duke. Duke Kahanamoku would never have approved of a 9-day closure of his beach for a private group. This is all corporate. You go down there, Pacifico Beer, sponsors, Hawaiian Airlines, sponsors. You know what I got from people, local people today? I can't even enter the contest. They want $70 to surf for 20 minutes. When did our public resource turn into some kind of private entity? And the city and county is sanctioning it? I could go on for an hour, longer than that. I've studied this issue. I've got the input of the local people. Like I said, I got this permit in about 2 hours, one day just down at the beach. I have people that come up to me and they go, why is a public resource being taken over by private companies? We used to have it pretty simple. Town and Country, Craig, had 2-day contests for the kids. 2 days. All the kids, lots of kids came down and served. That was their time. 2 days. The public realizes that the keiki need to get exposed, to learn the rules, the traditions.
Mr. Gary, can you wrap up because we have another committee at 2:30 and I still have a couple more.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you,
be
sir.
brief. Like I say, the performance by the city and the Parks and Rec does not even account for one of the issues in North Shore, 16 days per site. All we want is 16 days for Queens. That's it, no more. And the Duke contest, not 9 days, 4 days. I could go on forever. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Any questions for the testifier? All right. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Okay, we'll now proceed to remote testimony. Do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are registered testifiers.
Okay, we'll go with Sabina Brennan, followed by Betty DiPolito.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Brennan with Surf Equity, also known as the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing. And we emailed the chair a letter this afternoon. In short, we're opposed unless amended, and we understand this is coming back. The suggested revisions to the shore water event rules put forth by the Department of Parks and Rec unfortunately deviate from unanimously approved provisions outlined in City Council Resolution 2012. Rather than correcting gender-based disparities, the proposed regulations by Parks and Rec codify and institutionalize gender discrimination by introducing an inequitable point system that perpetuates exclusionary practices and upholds the storied history of harm inflicted upon women and girls engaged in surfing. We ask for the following 5 requirements. Please include these requirements within the city-county permits for surf comps and events and within city-county Parks and Rec shore water event rules. Number 1, an explicit non-discrimination requirement that's consistent with Article 1, Section 5 of the Hawaii Constitution. Number 2, a requirement that mandates a women's division and a men's division with an identical number of participants in each gendered category for all events and competitions that award ranking points used for Olympic qualifications. Number 3, a requirement that mandates gender divisions and slot utilization in surf events and competitions that do not award ranking points used for Olympic qualifications. We propose the introduction of a mandatory provision that designates separate women's and men's divisions for all surf events and competitions. Furthermore, a defined timeframe for gender-specific registration should be established, allowing participants ample time to enroll in the event. If a specific gender slots remain vacant by a stipulated deadline, those openings would then become accessible to competitors of the opposite gender who are on an alternate registration waiting list. This inclusive approach guarantees the optimization of all available opportunities and effectively prevents any slots from going unused. And again, these are for events that do not qualify athletes for the Olympics. Number 4, a requirement that mandates equal prize compensation, including prize purse and awards such as watches, surfboards, etc., at each participant level in all gendered divisions. Number 5, a requirement that mandates identical playing time, heat time for each gendered category / division. We also request the following recommendations, and I'll try to go very quickly here. and again, these are recommendations. We would like these also included in all permits and within the shore water event rules. All surf events and competitions must prioritize achieving gender equity by ensuring an equal representation of both men and women judges and announcers. The goal is to maintain a balanced and fair composition in all aspects of the event. The second bullet, in pursuit of equal and unbiased representation, it
Ms.
is
Brennan,
essential.
if you can, please, summary. I know we did receive your email, and I would be happy to forward that to the director. But if you can wrap it up, we have another committee coming up real quickly. So thank you.
Thanks, and I just want to mention the director has had this information from us for years and not followed up on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brennan.
Betty cover the rest of it.
Thank you. Let's move on to our next testifier, Betty DiPolito, followed by Alan Leonard.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for letting us speak. I represent the small organization growing the Hawaii Women's Sports Agency, and I speak for a lot of the girls out there that are not able to speak about this because they get ridiculed or they get demeaned by their organizations. As far as the Duke's Ocean Fest is concerned, they are on this paperwork in the rules, and they are favored, as well as other organizations, in getting permits. That has to stop. Basically, the permit structure now does not take care of women's equality. It takes care of diversity, maybe, but we want equality in these rules, period. 50-50 men to women. If the women don't sign up, then put more men in there. That's the easiest thing to do. We need gender equality all the way down in our industry. An example of the Duke's Ocean Fest is they have a legends competition. There's one woman legend and like 19 men legend. This is the mentality of these competitions, and we want all that to stop. We want equal representation in all these meetings and with the mayor's advisory committee. Like, we need to change all that so there's more women involved. Thank you very much. I hope you guys can understand these rules because they're very confusing, but please make it simple. 50-50 equality, not diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DiPolito. And I want to thank Councilmember Huayar. I know we are already into your meeting. If we can, 2:45, 2:50? Okay, awesome. Okay, we'll move on to Alan Leonard.
Hi there, this is Alan. I'm calling you on the dial-in. I wasn't sure if I would be counted, but I got it. I did send you some rushed testimony, and you can look at that. I took the rules and I put color blocks in yellow and blue with questions I had. Interestingly, my testimony is basically, it supports women because I was actually the guy who ran the first women's bodyboarding event with Carol Phillips. And ironically, my research led me to realize that when a lawsuit occurred on my event was part of a lawsuit, it was a target, that it actually brought up a piece of information which I thought interesting. I did flag it and send it out today because I just went through the information showing that the city back in 1999 had come up with a solution which was put into appeals court judicial record and signed off, I guess, by the court counsel, Don Sperlin, which allowed the city to, if a contest was broken up because of a weekend event, this is a North Shore event, that they could extend the holding period past that weekend and use extra days to get enough days in the holding period. But that's a technical thing. You guys are basically, I think that you really need to ask the Parks Department to slow down and have these meetings also at the North Shore Neighborhood Board and the Honolulu Neighborhood Board, because the problem is most of the community doesn't even know about this. And this may meet the minimum requirements for the sunset provision when you bring it to the state small business agency. But most of the people who want to actually ask questions didn't know about it, and they don't really have access. So I think you could say if it's published in a really tiny corner of the city website in a really sneaky way, yeah, you could say, yeah, maybe it's sunset provision. It's not. And as far as the free surfers, I support them. I don't want this thing being crowded over. But one of the things that
Mr. Leonard, can you wrap up your testimony, sir? Thank you.
I'm trying. I mean, Director Thielen just mentioned about Point Panic. Well, in my notes, I want you guys to know that Point Panic is an infrastructurally isolated area that was controlled by DLNR, and it shouldn't be controlled by the conflict resolution or scheduling rules. It's body surfing only by state law, so it should just be a body surfing place. If the body surfers want to have a contest there, they shouldn't have to be stuck in that box. That would be crazy. And because they rarely get a contest there anyhow as it is, just because conditions are rare. But thank you for taking our calls, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to testify remotely? Or is there anyone else? Clerk?
Chair, there's Angela Young.
Okay, Ms. Young, go ahead.
Aloha. Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. And also, it was not a bat, it was Batman. I might get sued from DC. Oh my gosh, because I'm live on TV.
Can you please move forward on your testimony? Thank you.
So the most famous surfing event of the world returns every season to Hawaii. The last event held over 1.2 million streaming views from fans across 200 countries around the world. Just as in the years past, the contest will run if surf heights consistently reaches 20 feet. The Eddy invites legends to surf at Waimea Bay on the North Shore. The Eddy is a premier event in the sport of surfing, and the Invitational celebrates the lineage of big wave surfers. And it was Eddy was a championship athlete, waterman, and family man who cared for others. And he was not just the first lifeguard at Waimea Bay, he was the first lifeguard for the North Shore and saved over 500 people throughout his career. Eddy would brave the waves, which reached 30 feet when no one else would go out.
Please wrap up your testimony. Thank you.
In closing, Eddy was brave enough to go out when no one else would. And it's good to inspire the next generation to live like Eddy did. So because the Eddy, focuses on Hawaiian culture and the goal is to share the stories of Hawaii with the world, I think we should support the work of the parks because in a way it mitigates the Eddy and the famous surf contest. And it is a male and a female surf contest. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there anyone else that want to testify remotely?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to ask if I could ask a question of one of the testifiers. I know we kind of skipped through, so not the most recent one, but Ms. DePolito.
Oh, Ms. DePolito? Okay.
Yeah. Well, first I wanted to ask Betty if you had any thoughts or comment on the point brought up earlier about all women's events and impact that a complete 50-50 split or an equity, a complete 50-50 split could have on that. I don't know if you have any thoughts or insight.
Yeah, that's a difficult situation with equity because we do want it 50-50, but I think that there should be some kind of provision that says if there's an equal event that has all men, like the big wave event, and all women big wave event, then those should be considered equitable and should be included. We need to take a look at the way that point system is because it really doesn't work. As a matter of fact, if you break those rules, or let's put it this way, if there is no conflict of interest for an event, for a time frame, then they don't even have to do the point system because they'll just be given a permit because there's nobody to, double check that point system with. So that's not fair. So you'll have a promoter that's just having a surf contest and not being equitable at all, and they get a permit. So that doesn't work, first of all. And then there's a month where they check to see if the event was happening and how good it was, like a month later. That doesn't work either. They need to shut the thing down if it's not equitable, period. That's what I think. We need to be a little bit tougher because it's taken way long. This is like, for me, 30 years later. For the city council, that when we started this, it's about 3 years later. And the women are being tortured by this right now, and it's not fair to them. and not equitable for them. They need opportunities. Build it and they will grow. And this statement about the WSL has more men than women, so therefore they cater to the men, is absolutely ridiculous. That is not equitable. They should not be allowed to have an event here if there's 42 men and 18 women, period. I'm sorry, but that's, and if we need to add more time, I'm for adding more time too. I'll get criticized for that, but have another event so the women can have something.
Okay, mahalo for that. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you.
I have a question, Director, and then hopefully we'll wrap this thing up. I just wanted to know what has been the feedback, from the North Shore and the South Shore community regarding the proposed rules.
Well, I think you heard a lot of the feedback today that we've been hearing too. We have worked with the neighborhood board. We've kept them informed, the North Shore, and most of the community concerns have been, are you changing the limitations that were in the rules on the number of events, the cooling off periods and things like that? And we said, no, we're not changing it. And so they've been supportive of that approach. The changes that we are talking about on the applications, and we would throw every application into the ranking. That's a difference. Under the current rules, what Betty described does happen. This rule change would make every application have to go through it. It actually will strengthen the applications on the community, mitigating the community impacts as well as the equity and diversity. So I don't think we're going to get to perfection where 100% of the people are going to agree with it. For every testimony you heard today on the equity, we're also hearing from promoters saying, don't do this because this is going to be difficult for us to meet. So I think we've found a middle ground. The rules are not written in stone, but it would be better to make an improvement for the next round for the North Shore Triennial, and then we are open to reassessing after we go through that application process if we can improve it again.
Thank you, Director, and I look forward to many more discussions, and hopefully we can get this thing solved, yeah? Mahalo everyone for attending and participating in today's meeting. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.